On the field. Off the field. Sports talk. Entertainment and more. This is Sauce on the Side.
Well, hello there, Dippers, and welcome back to episode 97 of the Sauce on the Side podcast. As always, Dippers, I'm your host, Drake, joined by the man, the producer, Mr. Leighton Pip Shaventone.
All it took was a Bron getting out of the East for us to go to the NBA Finals.
And our guest host, he is back after a multiple-week hiatus, the hot take detective himself, Mr. Brandon B. Riker.
Don't call it a comeback.
Dippers, be sure to download, subscribe, give us a 5-star review on Spotify and iTunes. Be sure to follow on Twitter and Instagram at TheSaucyPod. Guys, today we will break down both the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, give our burial ceremony for two of the teams eliminated. We will talk about the NBA Finals. We will talk a little bit about the All-NBA teams that were announced this week. Talk a little bit about hockey for probably the first time in ever on this podcast. And we will have a little MLB chatter for you today. So, guys, let's start it off hot and heavy. We have done it for every round so far, so let's put some teams to rest. And let's read exactly what it will say on each of these teams' headstones now that they have been put to rest. First on the docket, the Bucks.
What the hell happened?
I'm going with Kawhi was here.
Who knew Lex Luthor wore cornrows?
I like that.
The Blazers.
Single-handedly keeping the broom business going.
We made the Final Four.
At least it wasn't AD, Drew Holiday, and Nikola Mirotic. All right, so let's go ahead and recap some of these conference finals. So we have the Warriors sweep the Blazers despite not having Kevin Durant nor Boogie Cousins. Guys, does the fact that this was a sweep put a black eye on the season that many people see as a success for the Blazers?
No, I don't think so, because with the exception of Charles Barkley, I don't think anybody saw him getting this far into the conference playoffs. But now you just gotta wonder, is this their ceiling? Because they're going to have the same team next year, and they're going to pay Damian Lillard almost $50 million a year. So this might be the best they can do, though.
I mean, yeah, it might be. And like you guys talked about last week on the podcast, they're just going to have to basically, the assets they have, they just have to make them better somehow, like Zach Collins, the Myers Leonards of the world. But this was definitely just a great, I'm not into moral victories, but if any team deserved a moral victory, it's the Blazers in this one. I mean, they were, they had 2 double-digit leads going into halftime and then lost game 4 in overtime. I mean, the team was in it they were in the last 3 games. So that is more than anybody expected out of the Blazers, and a moral victory, I'll give them the moral victory.
Yeah, I'm rarely in the business of moral victories, like you said, Brandon. But this team actually led for a substantial amount of this conference finals. They actually led for more minutes than the Warriors did. And you hit the nail on the head. This was just a team that was basically outmatched. They would get up, they would get these substantial leads, be up by 16, you blink an eye, they're up by 3. They'd be up by double digits after halftime, come out 2 minutes later, they're down. They were just outmatched. They need their young players to get better. They know what they have in Damian Lillard. They finally realize that C.J. McConnell is becoming a star. So now they just need those next guys to take that next step. C.J. McCollum finally did, whether it's Cantor, Nurkic, Zach Collins, who looks like he's coming into his own. I don't see this as a black eye because this is a team that I really had out in the first round. You know, they were underdogs in the first round. They were underdogs in the second round against the Nuggets, and they found a way to win both of those series. Just because it's a sweep, you can't say it's a black eye because at the end of the day, a loss is a loss.
Well, and then on top of that, we always glance over that they didn't have their starting center, who was probably their 3rd best player most of the season. I mean,
absolutely. Like
you said, they had to roll out Ernest Cantor. They started Myers Leonard the last 2 games. Myers Leonard popped off for 30, and he had 5 did not plays in the whole playoffs. Yeah. So there's definitely some talent on the team. They're going to need some help from the rest of the league if they want to get past this stage, but I like where the Blazers are going as far as team development.
Yeah, and really, you hit it there. This team almost got into that weird spot that LeBron's teams got into, where it was basically just LeBron and nobody else, and they're just begging for somebody to rise to the occasion, where they're throwing out a Tristan Thompson, or they're throwing out a guy who didn't play the entire of the season just because nobody else was really there to help. And, you develop some of these guys and you get a third fiddle or anybody that could really take the next step, give you quality minutes. This team will be scary for years to come. Just hopefully they do it sooner than later with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum firing on all cylinders. So, guys, the Raptors, maybe the comeback story of the year. Down 0-2 and end up sweeping the Bucks in the next 4 games. How in the world did this happen?
Well, in the last 4 games, Giannis still played really well. He still averaged 20, 12, and 3 blocks a game. But he was much more efficient shooting the basketball in the first 2 games of the series. Actually, in the first entire of the playoffs, he shot 53%. Last 4 games, he shot like 39%. And so did everybody else on the team. And then get the Raptors, somebody besides Kawhi Leonard decided to do something. Even in the game, Kawhi scored 19 points. Fred VanVleet had 7 3-pointers, and he shot 17 for 25 from 3 for the last 4 games of the series. So basically, the Raptors stepped up to the plate and just hit it out of the park, and the Bucks just never could. They could there's a hump there they had. I don't know why they couldn't get over it. They just never could.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna just because what was your headstone for what just happened? Yeah. So let me say some stats here that kind of echoes that. The 2 teams, they had the same amount of steals for the series, the same amount of overall total shots for the series. They each side attempted 526 shots. They both sides averaged shooting the same amount of threes per game. They almost put up identical field goal percentage as each other, almost identical free throws made as each other. And the Raptors, for the whole series, they only were averaging 1 more point per game.
Wow.
I mean, these teams were so close, and Layton.
That's unreal.
I know, and I was gonna say the next day. I mean, you hit it on the head. Like Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet came to play, and the only big difference in the Raptors' favor was that they averaged making 3 more threes a game, and that clearly came from the likes of Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, especially those last 4 games.
Yeah, and you see Kyle Lowry. I've talked a lot of shit about Kyle Lowry. I'm on Kyle Lowry every single week about how he just falls short in the playoffs. This guy rose to the occasion. This guy came in averaging 15, 5, and 4, shooting 41% and 33% from 3 in his postseason career. This series, he shot 51%, scored 19 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and shot 47% from 3. Fred VanVleet stepped in. He shot 57% from 3 and made 16 of them. You only see a guy shoot 57% if he shoots 5 threes for the whole entire series.
Actually, the last 3 games, he made 78% of his threes.
That's absolutely insane. And that's really the difference. We saw this Bucks team basically just turn into Giannis versus the world. And, the turning point in this series, guys, we can't forget. Game 3, the Bucks are up 2-0, and Kyle Lowry fouls out going into overtime in the 4th quarter, and they still find a way to win. And this, you can't talk about it enough. Had the Bucks won that game, there is absolutely no way in hell the Raptors were going to pull off 4 straight, down 0-3. Nobody in postseason has ever done it. They win in 2 overtimes and find a way to push it just to a game 3, without being on the verge of being swept. And they ultimately come out and win. One thing that I have to say about this game is Kawhi Leonard, or this series is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is absolutely unstoppable. Layton talked about how Giannis was basically the man in the first 2 games. Well, that's whenever they were putting Pascal Siakam on him, thinking that was going to be a better matchup and save Kawhi for the offensive side of the ball. Kawhi, past game 2, every single time that Giannis walked onto the court, Kawhi checked himself into the game. There's a reason why this guy has played 40.5 minutes per game over his last 13, is because this guy doesn't listen to Nick Nurse. Anytime he sees Giannis walk onto the court, he walked over to Nick Nurse, tapped him on the shoulder, told him he was going in, checked in immediately. It was basically like back whenever LeBron was on the Heat and they were playing the Spurs in the finals. Whenever Kawhi would walk into the game, no matter what, every time LeBron walked onto the floor, this is exactly what happens. Kawhi Leonard's that big of a defensive defensive ball stopper. Kawhi Leonard has to go down after this series as being one of the greatest defensive players in NBA history. I mean, we've seen him shut down two of the most unstoppable forces of the 21st century. Hats off to Kawhi Leonard.
He's already the best Raptor of all time.
Oh, yeah. Best Raptor of all time for sure.
Did you actually know, fun fact, he is third in playoff scoring in Raptor franchise history.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Kyle Lowry's first, DeMar DeRozan is second.
Wow. And those are the two most unclutched guys of all time.
And Kawhi Leonard is third.
That is crazy.
I guess when you get there every year and you do advance pre-final series, you do get up on the list.
Yeah, no, and surprisingly, I guess, I don't remember this, Vince Carter was pretty low on the list. I guess he didn't make a lot of playoffs when he was there.
No, it seems the Raptors really never made the playoffs until Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan were there just to break their hearts every single year.
They were just cool as hell because they had T-Mac and Vince Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this series more about the Bucks losing the series or the Raptors actually winning the series?
I want to say it's a little bit of both. It's definitely a little bit of both. But I'm thinking of leaning more towards the Bucks losing it because they were up 2-0 and they were just a juggernaut all postseason. And then I just fed off. The way that the whole team just kind of forgot how to score towards the end, I go with the Bucks lose it.
See, I think it's a little bit of both as well, Layton, but I'm actually going more to the Toronto just came out and took this game. I mean, Kyle Lowry, like we've been talking about, like this guy is an all-star player. And we're like acting like it's surprising if he pops off for 20. Like that is what they needed. He stepped up. He played like an all-star. They won the series. I looked at the stats. The Bucks didn't play bad as a team. They really didn't. The Raptors were just a little bit better. VanVleet came in the last three games, just popped off, and he was abysmal this whole playoff. So I'm leaning more towards the Raptors took this from Milwaukee, but obviously Milwaukee I think was the more talented team. So.
Yeah, I think that, like I said earlier, the turning point was Game 3, and at the end of that game, I think it was the end of the fourth quarter, there was probably 7 seconds left. They just basically ran up the court, and Chris Middleton just shot a three just out of nowhere. I know that that's what got them there, was them heaving up threes and making them, but in that scenario, you did not need a three. Like, you could have just, you had a fast break, you could run it down there, maybe get a layup, throw it to your best player on the court, maybe he can make a shot. But you have to look at this. Guys, a team doesn't lose. They don't get the mark of losing a series whenever the guards on the other team shoot 50% from three.
Yeah.
That's not losing a series. That's just out there getting beat. So I have to say that the way that Game 3 ended was the Bucks basically handing the game over, missing
Correct.
11 free throws. They handed that game over, but outside of that 5-minute stretch at the end of the fourth quarter, the Toronto Raptors just came out here and won this series. So where do the Bucks go from here going into next season?
So the Bucks have three big guys going to be free agents next season. Brook Lopez, Chris Mitchell will opt out of player option, and Malcolm Brogdon. This year, those three guys combined to make $18 million. And you have to probably pay Chris Middleton at least $2 million to keep him back at all. Actually, no.
$20 million.
That's a player option?
Yeah, for $12 million. So he'll probably decline that.
He'll get max money somewhere else just because he made an All-Star game.
Yeah, so I bet he'll decline that. So they got to try to bring back like two of those three guys. Try to bring in so many pieces, keep things going. But as long as they have Giannis, they can compete in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, like Lane was kind of hinting at, they have all the pieces. They have to re-sign Brogdon, they have to retain Middleton. The real question mark to me is the Brook Lopez. The Brook Lopez, he signed for what, like $3.5 million this season? There's no way he's re-signing a one-year deal for $3.5 million this season.
Absolutely
if he did,
no way.
he's just one to stay on the Bucks. He's not looking after his one. Like, Brook Lopez is worth some decent money. Another thing that they really need to do to make all this happen is they need to be able to move George Hill's contract that they acquired because he's making $18 million next season. It'll be an expiring deal. They need to move that, completely move it, see if they can just get that off the books because like Layton said, they have a couple of big money options coming up, and they're already up towards the top of the salary cap. So if they can move George Hill, I think they'll be able to retain Brogdon and Middleton and hopefully get Brook Lopez on some type of one-year deal.
Yeah, I agree with you. And in the world of the NBA right now, teams just basically paying to get those expiring contracts, buying them out. Like, I don't really see that that's going to be a problem for the Bucks. If they can move that contract, I see them being able to retain both Brogdon and Middleton. But the only question mark here, Brook Lopez was absolutely huge for this team. Wasn't Brook Lopez the only guy in the NBA who had a block every single game this season?
He had a block in 77 of 82 games.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yes, well, he has 2.2 a game. Yeah. It's a great average, but shit, 77.
His defensive win shares, I just looked that up before this. They were actually really high. I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, hell yeah, they're going to be high. All he does is stand at the three-point line and heave them up. So he's not using any energy on offense, doesn't have to run underneath the basket. Brook Lopez was a big point to this team. I mean, you have a 7-footer that gets one block in 77 of the 82 games this season, and he's out there shooting at a high clip from 3, 7 foot tall. You have to bring him back. But the main guy here is Chris Middleton. If they get Chris Middleton back, they can piece everything else together. They have to get that George Hill contract off the books. But like we all think, this team will be back in this same spot next year.
I just googled Brook Lopez, and apparently he is the highest priority for the Bucks to be signed, not Chris Middleton.
Wow.
So, Jake, you think the Bucks making a mistake in that?
Absolutely, yes. Chris Middleton's the key piece to that.
77 blocks in 82 games is enough for you?
No, it's not.
You have any more thoughts for us?
Yes, I do, actually.
It was all a dream. I used to read Run Up magazine.
It seems just like yesterday. Number 2 was in a Spurs uniform, up 25 on the Golden State Warriors, and Zaza lended him a foot to land on. That's the day Skip Bayless's love for number 2 came to an end. Apparently, when you're a star player in Toronto, you get free room and board, free meals, and a hell of a payday on your contracts. Maybe Drake isn't too far off by saying Toronto sports teams have love for their team like college teams do. Apparently, when you're a coach of Toronto, you get great paydays and back rubs by Drake on the sideline. Drake saw it worked for Mark Cuban, and it's a copycat league. Imagine buying $12,000 playoff tickets and realizing you have to sit behind Drake for 4 quarters. 6 God, down in front. Kawhi Leonard, the greatest postseason defender of all time. Kyle Lowry, saved all of his clutch games for when it actually had a chance. Nick Nurse, Ty Lue, David Blatt. The last 3 coaches to represent the East in the NBA Finals. You remember whenever people thought that good coaches actually won in this league? Miles Turner, leading the NBA in blocks and not making an all-defensive team is like leading the MLB in ERA and not winning a Cy Young. Welcome to the game show where the points don't matter. Minnesota Twins, hotter than an August in Jamaica. St. Louis Cardinals, colder than a December day in Minnesota. Miami Marlins won 6 games in a row after starting 10-32. And after I proclaimed the Mariners to make the postseason, they have went 10-30 since. And there's a new book out this week, and it's titled We Are Finally Here, and it is written by all the Toronto fans. And those have been my thoughts.
One more Drake baseball thought he got to mention. Since the Marlins would not win 50 games, they've been the hottest team in baseball.
Yes. I said that they would not win 50 games this baseball season. They rattled off 6 in a row. So, congratulations to the Marlins. I don't know how you guys are doing it. So, guys, let's go ahead and transition to the NBA Finals. This is going to be a good Finals. I'm just going to go ahead and proclaim it there. We have the Warriors and the Raptors. Raptors actually have home court advantage in this. Guys, what will be the keys for each team to find a way to win?
So, I'm going to start with the Warriors here, and my biggest key is putting KD back in the offense and still making Draymond Green be the Draymond Green we've seen in the playoffs thus far. Draymond Green is playing with a lot more freedom. He's playing well on the offensive side efficiently. He's playing super well defensively. And let's not forget the Raptors have Siakam, who I'm guessing Green is going to draw that matchup. So I really think Draymond Green for the Warriors is just really the biggest thing. And then we can go on to the Raptors. I mean, Kawhi's going to be there. Siakam's going to be there. Can Lowry and Van Fleet continue what they're doing? Or maybe Danny Green averaged, by the way, 3 points per game last series. Let's not forget that. Maybe he can come back and play well. Basically what I'm saying is those 3 players, the outside shooters, they have to get going, because they don't get going, the Warriors rattle off points in a hurry, and it can get ugly. So basically more of the same for the Raptors and the Warriors is what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. One thing I'm looking at, so I think game one, I'm going to point game of the entire series. Because that is the one game we know for sure Kevin Durant is not playing in.
I'm pretty sure that the Warriors have only lost like one game under Steve Kerr.
Okay, so,
I think they're like 17-1 or something.
So Raptors
Unreal.
have to make it 2. They have to beat them when KD's not there. Because this is the one time they can put Kawhi on Steph. They can't do that any other game this series, probably. If they can put Kawhi on Steph and just figure out the other matchups, and Kawhi can get out there and bully Steph and wear him down and make it so he's hurt, quote-unquote hurt again, and shoots 2 from 12 for 3, the Raptors can win this game and win the series. But if it's up game 1, I can't see winning game once KD comes back, especially if it's one game 2. If KD comes back, they're going to win game 2. I can't see him coming back down from 2-0 to get against the Bucks, get against the Warriors.
There's actually the second matchup the Warriors and the Raptors had this year. I think they only actually had 2. Van Fleet guarded Curry, and I'm pretty sure he did a pretty good job of that.
This is where I'm
while
going.
they were playing.
This is where I'm going.
Okay, well then I'll let you roll with it because I think we're gonna make the same point.
So guys, the Toronto Raptors have two guys who have won Defensive Player of the Year awards. Okay, they also have Serge Ibaka, who's been on 3 all-defensive NBA teams. Do you know who has the highest defensive rating on this Raptors team in the postseason?
Fred VanVleet.
Fred VanVleet. In 2 of the 3 series so far, the only exception being the one against the 76ers, and he was it's Fred VanVleet, and he's out there trying to guard a 7-foot Ben Simmons. So I cut him some slack. Fred VanVleet had the highest defensive rating in the first round, and he had the highest defensive rating in the Eastern Conference Finals. And he was trying to guard Drew Bledsoe, which Drew Bledsoe, you can make the argument, is probably the third leading fiddle on that Bucks team as far as being able to score.
It's Eric Bledsoe, but yeah, we knew what you said.
Who did I say?
Drew.
Oh, no. not Drew Bledsoe. Drew. They're about the same height.
Yeah, right. But,
I really think that Fred VanVleet's going to be the difference maker here. Yes, I think you're going to see Kawhi Leonard basically guard whoever has the hot hand, but Fred VanVleet is a pain in the ass. Do you guys remember those old school Arkansas teams like in the 90s that they always talk about? They say, whenever you come onto the court, we're going to give you 40 minutes of hell. Mm-hmm. Fred VanVleet has to be the guy that gives Steph Curry 25 minutes of hell.
So, and what even is better with that, the last 3 games, his offense has been hindering him getting on the court so much. Like, he can't even hit an open 3. Now that he's kind of stroke back, if he can get, like you're saying, 25 minutes per game, you're going to spare Kyle Lowry some of that defensive struggle on Curry. And we know the Splash Brothers, you can't just have Kawhi Leonard guard one of them. They have at least 3 all-star, level scorers, like Curry, Thompson, and KD, that you're going to have to figure out how to guard all of them. You're going to have somebody other than Kawhi Leonard have to step up. And I think Van Fleet is going to have to be the one.
Yeah, Fred VanVleet, I think, is the most important part of this series, and it's from the defensive side of the ball. I mean, guys, even in round 2, where I'm saying that he wasn't even the highest defensive rating player on his team, he still had 104 defensive rating. It's just because everybody else was playing so good. And like you said, Leighton talked about how he didn't even like the 76ers versus Raptors series because nobody really scored. It's because their defense was elevated that much in that series. Everybody played good. And Fred VanVleet, I think, is the biggest factor for the Raptors to win this series, and it's not even that he has to hit shots. He just has to be able to put the clamps on Steph Curry as tight as he can, because if they go out there and try to run man and Steph Curry is going head-to-head with Kyle Lowry's going to foul out of the damn game. I mean, I talked about how many fouls he was getting this postseason, how he was fouling out of a game even. I think that Fred VanVleet is the biggest piece to this. And a lot of people are actually going to talk about playoff experience leading into this game. Don't listen to that. That's complete bullshit. Listen to this. Listen to the playoff experience that the Raptors are coming in with. Marc Gasol has started 77 playoff games. Kawhi Leonard, he has started 105 playoff games. Kyle Lowry, he has played in 80 playoff games, started 67. Danny Green, 112 playoff games that he has started. He's had 12 starts in the finals, and he actually averaged 3 more points per game in the finals than any other time in his career. Serge Ibaka, 102 playoff starts, 127 playoff games played in. They have a ton of guys with this type of experience. The only guy that really gets playing time that's a first-year starter is Siakam. And Siakam, he's better than a guy who's never really played in these type of games. So, guys, is there going to be any guy on this Golden State Warriors team that can slow down Kawhi Leonard?
I think it's possible to. There's a combination of Klay Thompson and maybe some Draymond Green at times, just mix it up a little bit. Somebody probably could, but I think the one thing that could stop Kawhi is just the minutes he's had put on his body now. He's averaged, 45 minutes a game this postseason. At some point in time, he's going to have to break down. I hope he doesn't break down ever because it's awesome seeing him play this way, but I'm worried about the minutes and any one player stopping him.
I just think when you're talking about like a top 5 player in the league, there is no stopping. There's containing and forcing other players to play. And I really don't even think that's the biggest issue, is just to stop Kawhi. I think it's just to contain him and then hope the other players don't play well. Because let's be honest, people like Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, when he's like right, you can't just stop those players. Even when you say somebody had a good defensive performance, they're still dropping 30. So I don't know if there's anybody who can stop them. But I think he's going to get his. Let's just say that.
Yeah, he absolutely is going to get his. I'm actually going to pull up his game from the first time that he played the Warriors. Remember whenever Zaza threw his foot underneath him and he didn't play for the remainder of the series and basically the whole entire next year? Kawhi Leonard, in that game, played 23 minutes, had 26 points whenever he had to come out. And that was against a healthy team in the Warriors. I think it's going to be the same thing. I think this guy's going to go out there and absolutely destroy them. I don't think that Klay Thompson's a phenomenal defender, don't get me wrong. But I don't think that he has the size to be able to go head-to-head with Kawhi Leonard. I mean, this is a guy that we just saw basically take Giannis to school. And they don't have a guy like Giannis that will be able to slow him down like that. Draymond Green might get out there and try to bully him a little bit. Kawhi Leonard's faster than him. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch Kawhi Leonard on the offensive side of the ball because I don't think that the Warriors have anybody that can legitimately slow him down. I mean, guys, 26 points in 23 minutes the last time we saw him play the Golden State Warriors in the postseason. I think it's going to be more of the same. So, who wins this series and why? And give me how many games.
I'm picking the Warriors in this series. But if the Raptors came out there and played the defense and score like they did in games 3, 4, 5, and 6, I can see this going 5 games. But that's okay. Warriors in 5. I don't think the Raptors, they can do anything against the Bucks. That was great. But the Warriors, they've been hit before. They have more firepower. Kennedy's going to come back. I know he's been injured, but he comes back, he's going to come back rested and healthy. So I'm going to take the Warriors.
I'm going Warriors in 6, and this is just a gut call, and that the Warriors are just a better team.
I'm gonna go with the Raptors. I did not think all season, I would not say that I would have bet against the Golden State Warriors. Before the NBA season even started, I said you could book the Golden State Warriors to win. Guys, we cannot forget that this is the same team. Yes, they did beat the Blazers, but they trailed for large portions of those games. And whenever you are trailing in games and you play a team that is led first on the defensive side of the ball, it's hard as hell to get out of that little rut that they had. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum did not even play as good as what they had going all throughout the postseason into that game. Kawhi Leonard, he will. I can guarantee that. Anytime Kawhi Leonard's shooting the ball in the postseason, I can basically just say, yep, that's going in. That's going in. Mm-hmm. Where the Blazers, they got in those cold streaks where they were just looking for a guy to make the shot. All they're going to do is just throw the ball to Kawhi, and he will get him a basket whenever the Warriors are trying to go on one of their just miraculous runs of 16, 15-point swings. I think this is going to come down to the fact that whenever the Warriors come in a little lax in the first half, which is what they've done basically this whole entire postseason, the Raptors are going to be able to put the clamps on them in the second half. That's where you're going to get the Fred VanVleet minutes. That's where you're going to get the Kawhi Leonard clutch time baskets. And I think this is going to be an all-time series. I think it's going to go 6, maybe even 7. But I think that the Raptors are going to put themselves in an all-time predicament with Kawhi Leonard wanting to come back. It's going to get real if Kawhi Leonard wins a title and leaves this team. But it would be the exact thing that would happen to Toronto.
That Kawhi would do too, I feel.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I feel like you are a little undervaluing that possibly the best basketball player in the world is coming back to the Warriors this series.
Maybe.
That's my biggest thing. Like I said, the Raptors could win game 1.
But are they better with him?
They're better with him.
One more thing I'll say about this series. So KD obviously will come back at some point. I heard some very optimistic rumors. I'll say it's very optimistic, but they said possibly DeMarcus Cousins could come back towards the end. So we don't know if that's good or even bad. I don't even know. And then for the Raptors, OG, I cannot say the rest of his name.
Anubile or whatever?
Yeah, so supposedly he's been practicing with the team. So there's a possibility he could come back and give defensive minutes. So let's just see who all comes back this series, because supposedly everybody's healthy.
See, and here's the thing with this, is that there's so much uncertainty with the Golden State Warriors at this point in time. There's really not that much uncertainty with the Raptors. Okay, Kevin Durant may come back. Kevin Durant is a huge part to that. If OG comes back, he's just going to be like a guy who's out there stealing minutes every 1-2 minutes a quarter. There's so much uncertainty with this Golden State team, and we can't think of it like it's a baseball series where you're just going to throw your best player who's your left fielder out there and it doesn't interrupt anything else on the team. Or it's not like football where you're going to get your best wide receiver back and it doesn't interrupt anything on the team. This is basketball where these guys have to have rhythm. They have to be playing together. And if Kevin Durant comes back and he's not playing at 100%, do you think that's going to help the Warriors? I mean, we're talking about 100% Kevin Durant, who people are actually making the argument that the Warriors are better without him. So if he comes back at 80%, what's that going to look like? I know what I'm getting with the Raptors. I do.
So, one more thing before we move on off of basketball for the day. How do you guys feel? Let's say Kevin Durant and Cousins don't come back at all, and the Warriors just cruise through this finals. Then do you think they would both go to the parade?
Oh, they have to.
I think they skip the parade for not being the team at all.
Well, they'll go to the parade.
They'll go to the parade. Better question is, do the Raptors go to the White House?
Ooh,
I don't know.
I think I'm now cheering for Toronto 1,000%.
Yeah.
I want to see what happened with this.
Yes, and I want to see if the people are still mad if they don't go.
When the Blue Jays won the World Series, did they go to the White House?
I have no idea.
I'll look it up.
I would imagine that they did. I think that was just like a kind of a courtesy call then, different than what it is now.
Yeah, definitely.
So, guys, it is time. We have had a multiple month hiatus of Brandon being in the studio trying to shoot down my hot takes. So, guys, the way that this goes, I'm pretty sure the only reason Brandon watches sports is because he likes to tell me when I am wrong. So, the hot take detective is back, and I have 3 hot takes today. So, Brandon, Kawhi Leonard is the best player on the court in this finals.
He is until KD comes back on the court. Let's be honest. KD is the best scorer. Kawhi, no doubt. I'm putting Kawhi Leonard and watching him against, because I actually watched him closely every single game versus 76ers, and it was almost maddening how good of defense the 76ers would play on him, and he still scored. I didn't realize how good of a scorer I feel like that Kawhi Leonard was. And honestly,
I don't think anybody realized it.
Yeah, and then Kawhi Leonard's obviously a great two-way player, and he's just a good player. But KD is the most dominant offensive force in my mind on this planet. And let's not forget, he's 7 foot. I don't know what his freaking wingspan is. He's a good defensive player when he really wants to turn it on. KD, to me, is still the best player in the NBA. I'm going Kawhi Leonard actually at number 2, and that's only because I don't know what's going on with LeBron James that was hurt or if he's just old. So those are my 1 and 2 right there. There's a little gap in between for 3, but KD is the best player in the world at the game of basketball.
Okay. So take number 2. The Raptors winning the title would be the most unlikely title run in the modern era of the NBA. And I'm gonna preface this by saying, whenever they traded for Kawhi Leonard, he had not played basically the whole entire season prior to that. They didn't know what they were getting. He was hurt the whole entire year. They trade their best player away for a guy who's a huge question mark. And then mid-season, they also trade for a guy who's basically got one foot in retirement, the other one on a banana peel, and Marc Gasol, and Kyle Lowry, who's aging, who's basically never been the guy in the postseason. So, Brandon, are the Raptors the most unlikely winner?
It is a very unlikely winner if they were to win, and it's pretty good story that they got to where they are, and it's great for Kawhi Leonard. It's a great narrative. But I only have to go back as far as 2011, the Mavericks. I mean, yes, they had a lot more certainty than to start the season, but past Dirk Nowitzki, who was their second best player?
Jason
Who was their
Terry.
second best scorer?
Jason Terry.
Scary Terry, and then I think Jason Kidd, who was like one of his last legs, were the only three people in the playoffs that averaged over 10 points a game.
Wow.
They had a bunch of people that had like 8, 9. I mean, they had like Tyson Chandler. They had Sean Marion that was old. Like, they had a bunch of old savvy veterans. But that team went up against one of the first superpowers in a team, and that's really what started everything. You had Chris Bosh, you had Dwayne Wade, you had LeBron James, and you had their own savvy veterans that they had, and they got demolished by Dirk Nowitzki and the boys, for lack of a better term. J.J. Barea. I mean, these were the guys that were dominating the Heat. And yes, the Raptors it's a good story, like I'm saying, but they also have 2 All-Stars on the team and have Siakam, who plays at an All-Star level. So just looking at the two teams, the Raptors are a better team, so I'm going to go with the Mavs, 2011 Mavs.
Okay. See, whenever I'm saying it, though, I was just going with, at the beginning of the season, what the hell do we have here with the Raptors?
Yeah. No, and I wasn't even thinking about that, so that made it a little tougher, but I'm still going to 2011 Mavs, but that was a good way to think about it, since of the uncertainty to start the season.
All right. Final one. And I think this is going to raise your eyebrows a little bit, because I honestly did not realize it until the other day whenever Latency and I broke this down. Third base right now is the deepest of any position in MLB history outside of sheer outfielders or pitchers. Latency and I talked about this a few weeks ago. We basically rattled off 20 guys in the MLB that are playing at an elite level at the third base position. Or if they're not playing at it this season, they have in maybe a season prior. Basically, everybody has a good third baseman. Do you think it's one of the deepest we've ever seen any position?
I think it has to be. I mean, it's hard just to look up through that in history, but like you're saying, there are so many third basemen that are playing at a high level. I mean, you go down halfway through the list and you have, Franco from the Phillies? I always pronounce that wrong, but he's playing at a good level. I mean, he's 15, closer to 20, and
you have Mike Moustakas, who has 14 home runs, having to get pushed to second base because his team even has a third baseman.
Right. That's a really good point there. I mean, there's a lot of that. Outfield's hard just because
it's outfield.
There are 3 outfielders in each team.
Yeah, and left and right field are kind of interchangeable. Center field's kind of its own thing, but I think I'm actually going to agree with you. Just for looking at it, it was just kind of shocking how many good third basemen there are. And like you said, even the Mike Moustakas of the world have to move over to second base.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. We talked about it. I sent the outline to Leighton, and he even we talked about it before the show, and he's like, dude, I did not realize that there are 20 really freaking good third basemen in this league. Kind of eye-opening. And guys, if you don't buy into it, just look up the names. Just look up the leaders of the third base statistics. You probably have 15, 20 guys that are in the top 100 MLB players. And it's absolutely insane to think about.
Yeah, I think over half the team's best players is a third baseman, or the next best player is a third baseman.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to look no further than the NL Central.
Oh, yeah, almost every position?
Yeah, almost every single
team.
guy could be an all-star if it was in any other era of the MLB. So I think it's absolutely phenomenal. It's a good little thing for the third baseman out there. So, guys, I got one of 2. I'll take that. And there was a hesitation on one of them, so I'll even take that as well. So, guys, all NBA teams were announced. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry, Paul George, James Harden, and Nikola Jokic. spearheaded the All-NBA first team this season. Guys, were there any snubs in any of the 3 All-NBA teams this year?
So I think they did a pretty good job on it this year. You know, look at the kind of the All-Star voting thing we talked about earlier this year. I think they did a pretty good job picking the reserves, picking these. Klay Thompson, you know, that the whole thing with the media, laughed at him or whatever. But, I mean, Kemba had a career year. Kemba was way more important to the Hornets than he was to the Warriors. And yes, him being on the Warriors definitely hinders his numbers, but I think they got it right.
Oh, I absolutely think they got it right. First team, no doubt. Second team, I don't have a question. And then you got to look at third team. I almost love every single selection they made. I think they made the right gut calls. And then I love that they put Rudy Gobert in it. Rudy Gobert gets no love for those type of awards. He doesn't even make
all-star teams.
I know. And he gets a love for the – and let's get this. He's on a defensive and an NBA, all-NBA team. Like, and he's not an all-star? Come on. We got to get that right next season. Gobert, I love that pick. I don't have a problem with any of it. Klay Thompson didn't deserve it this year.
There's only one problem I have, and that's because of the prior years that the NBA has done these kind of things. So Russell Westbrook shot the same exact percentage as he did the year that he won the MVP, still averages a triple-double, has a better rebounding percentage, and higher gets more assists, and that's just now good enough for third team whenever 2 years ago we're giving the guy a freaking MVP award for this kind of numbers.
That's actually very fair.
And you look at it, Kyrie Irving gets second team over Russell Westbrook. Kyrie Irving averaged 1 point more per game, 6 less rebounds, 4 assists less, and played 6 less games. So I don't understand that. I could see, if Kyrie Irving's out there playing all 82 games, but the guy puts up, now he did score 9 less points, but he's still scoring at the same percentage as what he did whenever he won an MVP award. I don't see how you can put up very, very comparable numbers just within a 3-year span and go from an MVP to a third team all NBA.
Well, you know the answer to that. It's not a logical answer, but you know the answer to that.
They're tired of it.
Well, we're tired of it, and we realize that's not that impressive, and it hasn't led to victories, so we don't care anymore.
Yeah, but, I get that.
Now that you say it out loud, I would probably put Russell Westbrook above Kyrie in the second team. I would probably do that.
Yeah,
now that you say that, yeah. That
was just a head scratcher. I'm sitting there looking at, and both guys had their questions. They, both guys had their questions in the media. They're like, hey, does the way Russell Westbrook play win basketball games? Also, same could be said for Kyrie whenever his team was almost undefeated whenever he wasn't out on the court. Yeah. So I think those are two really odd places to put guys, especially whenever he's just removed off of an MVP just 2 seasons ago. So guys. All defensive first team, Marcus Smart, Eric Bledsoe, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Paul George, and Rudy Gobert. There's actually 2 guys that are in the first team All-NBA are on the all defensive first team. Did you guys notice any obvious snubs of all the defensive teams?
Can we just throw it to Drake? Because we know which one he wants to talk about, and I agree with it.
Okay, Miles Turner.
Yep.
Most blocks per game, 12 more blocks than anyone in the NBA, and still doesn't make an all-defensive team. Guys, he had an 8.4 block percentage. Every 100 shots that was put up against Miles Turner, he blocked them. There was not a guy within a full percentage point of him. The 2 guys that they put above him, Rudy Gobert and Joel Embiid. Rudy Gobert, 5.8. That's not very good whenever you compare it to Miles Turner's 8.4. Joel Embiid, 4.4. That's almost half of what Miles Turner put up this season. Only 18 players in MLB history, or in NBA history, have played in 84 or more games and have an 8.4 or higher block percentage. And it's only happened 3 times since 2000. This is a guy that you could have honestly put as Defensive Player of the Year, and you wouldn't have a ton of people mad about it. You'd have people upset saying, why do you give it to a big man every year? But whenever you break down the numbers, you could make a strong argument for this guy to be the Defensive Player of the Year, and he doesn't even make a defensive first team. That's an absolute disgrace, especially whenever you look at a guy like James Harden, who basically stands in the corner and tries to swipe for steals every once in a while, getting 2 first team votes.
Okay, yeah, so to add to that, I got some metrics. per 36 minutes, Miles Turner averaged 3.4 blocks. Joel Embiid averaged 2. And we got second team offensive teams, what I'm saying him. Per possessions, Miles Turner had 4.6 blocks. Joel Embiid had 2.7.
So every 100 possessions, he got 4 blocks.
4.6.
That's insane.
Closer to 5 than 4. However, despite leading in every single, I guess only 2 defensive stats, steals and blocks, he has a lower defensive rating than Joel Embiid.
That makes sense.
He does. I think it has a lot to do with like defensive rebounds and like situational stuff like that. That's not necessarily what I think of what it should be. What did you say, Layden?
My favorite stat, though, for this, Miles Turner had 1 block in 69 games this season. He played in 74. Joel Embiid played in 64 games.
Wow. That's crazy.
No,
That's crazy.
And I'm the biggest 76ers guy you'll see, at least definitely on this podcast ever comes on. And Miles Turner, he should have gotten over Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's a good defensive player, but when you go up against Rudy Gobert and Miles Turner, those two should get the nod, not Joel Embiid this year.
I'm willing to say that if Miles Turner was as good at defense as Joel Embiid is, he would maybe see 15 minutes a game. The only reason he's out there is to swat shots.
But then you can always make that argument. Joel Embiid spends a lot more energy on the offensive side, so he touches the ball every single possession. So I mean, you can always make that argument. I think they both have the same skill set, but Miles Turner this year not getting the love that he deserves is a slap in the face.
No, I absolutely agree. Do you guys have any other snubs on the defensive side of the ball?
Not knowable, no.
Okay. So guys, we'll go ahead and transition to darts and wait and see what game do we have for us today. Pew 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 pew. We're playing darts, baby.
Sauce Cup Time Machine.
Okay, so guys, how this works, we each throw a dart at the same exact time. It lands on the dartboard. Each number on the dartboard represents a different event, and we put those events in chronological order by which we think that they will happen. So, fellas, first dart. We have a 2, we have a 12, and we have an 18.
Okay, so the 2 is LeBron buys an NBA franchise. 12 is MLB shortens the games to 7 innings. And 18 is the Suns win 30 games.
So wait, what was the first one?
LeBron buys an NBA franchise.
Okay.
MLB shortens the games to 7 innings. The Suns win 30 games.
I'll take the floor on this, and I'm dead set on I know what it's going to be.
Okay.
The MLB will never shorten their games. They will never shorten the series, the season. This is stuck. We're 9 innings, 162 games, maybe 163 games until the day we die, because old baseball writers, and even whenever they start getting phased out, we'll have new old baseball writers. Next up, LeBron James will buy an NBA franchise at some point, but he'll be like a Derek Jeter, where he puts up a little bit of money for it, and he has a role in the organization, so therefore he's a part owner. The Suns are going to win 30 games next year. All they have to do is get a point guard. There's a lot of good point guards in this draft. They're not going to get the guy I was praying for with John Morant, but all they have to do is just get a point guard to get the freaking ball out of Devin Booker's hands and make him stop playing the point guard role. He's not a point guard. He's a shooting guard. It takes 2 minutes of watching him play to figure that out, and he's a good one. He's a good shooting guard. So I think that the Suns will win 30 games next year. LeBron, after his retirement, will be a part owner of an NBA team at some point, and baseball will never change the rules.
Yep, I agree with you. The Suns, they'll win 30 games next year, within the next 2 years, they definitely will. LeBron will buy an NBA franchise at some point in time, probably trade away all the best players like Derek Jeter did to rebuild it, and it will be never going to shorten the baseball game. It's not going to happen. If the game takes 5 hours long, it takes 5 hours long.
Are we so sure that LeBron's not going to buy a team before he retires? He might just get a little antsy. He might buy his own team.
That'd be a hell of a spin.
He might get just pissed off at the Lakers. Yeah, he's done with them.
Whoa. Him and Magic Johnson, part owners of the Lakers, they draft LeBron Jr.
The best thing of all time.
Lakers are such turmoil, they decided to sell only 2 bidders, Magic and LeBron.
Magic and LeBron, part owners of the Lakers, they draft LeBron James Jr. to play alongside of Pop. And they trade every single player on the team just so they can get that draft pick for LeBron James Jr.
That's awesome.
I know you can't be
What? Go on.
I know you can't be a player coach, get conflict of interest. Can you be a owner player?
If you're the owner, there's no you just own it. You make the. I mean, you decide
make the
what's
calls.
conflict or not.
You can
Hell.
dress, right?
Cubes, dude. Who did Cubes have dress out? I think it was Tony Romo. If you're
It
the owner,
was.
you can. If you're the owner, you can do whatever you want.
It was
Oh
pretty
yeah,
well.
no, you can do whatever you want. Do whatever
That
you
was
want.
awesome.
So yeah, I'm agreeing with you guys. This one's pretty cut and dry. The main reason, not only is baseball just set in their ways and they can't change anything, shortening the series or shortening games affects stats, and lifelong stats for some reason is like porn to baseball people. Like,
Yes.
you have to have it there. So that is the last. LeBron James will buy a franchise, but it'll be in a few years. The Suns, the next few seasons, will win 30 games. So
I hope at least that Suns team. I'm waiting for them to turn the corner.
Hey, big thing's coming. Said for 3 years now.
It-
Some point in time, they got to that.
It's
fucking
coming.
corner.
All right. So now our second throw, and we have a 3, a 6, and a 14.
Baltimore Orioles make the playoffs. NFL adds 2 teams. Shifts are outlawed in baseball.
oh boy, that's a good one.
Okay, this is much tougher to decipher.
You remember whenever I said the MLB will never change the rules?
Yeah,
I
That'd
lied.
be the only one that
they
changed.
might change this one.
They could
Okay.
change this one.
I'll go first here. Listen for I can look at as I do it. So, man, the Orioles are really bad.
They're terrible.
They're
Oh.
awful.
They're terrible. I'm gonna say the NFL adds 2 teams for the thing that happens.
Okay.
I can see that happen within the next 4 or 5 years. Then I'll go with the shift being outlawed. But man, would that make it 4 or 5 more years?
No. The shift will be outlawed first. The Orioles will never make the postseason, and then the NFL will add 2 teams. I'll make that easy for you.
Has the NFL ever, have they been talking about it at all?
I
No,
know
but I'm
talking
dead
about it
set
for
that the
years.
Orioles are never going to make the postseason.
What's that?
the
I'm
Orioles-
dead set that they'll never make the postseason, the Orioles.
Oh, they'll make it one day, but it. So what I'm going to go with, the Orioles making the postseason last, because I don't even see where they're going. I don't even see
Neither do they.
light at the end of the tunnel. They don't have a great minor league system like other teams that have gotten out of the cellar. Man, but the one that I don't know is the shift in the 2 teams, because the NFL hasn't even talked about it. And the shift, I think it's a ways away from getting a lot of steam.
I think I'm gonna go shift gets outlawed first. Then, if it adds 2 teams, then it will make the playoffs.
I'm going NFL outlaws. I mean, NFL gains 2 teams, then shift, then Baltimore.
I'm going shift. NFL adds 2 teams, and then the Orioles never make it.
Yeah, this might have been the hardest cup championship we've had yet.
Yeah, that was actually a really good one.
I kind of hope the Orioles never make it again.
They
That would
won't.
be kind of funny.
They won't.
They never beat that pinnacle.
I hope they get
Pinnacle for
within
them.
1 game of the wild card, like they really load up for that one season, don't make it, and then they're bad for another 30 years. That'll be nice.
And it doesn't help that 3 teams in their division are still super good, and they're going to be super good for a long
Yeah.
time. And if they're not super good, 2 of those 3 teams can just go buy more players.
That's right.
So we're going to go ahead and transition gears here to something we've never really talked about a whole lot, and that's hockey. Guys, we're not going to act like we know anything about hockey, nor do we care to, but I thought it'd be very interesting to talk about these 2 cities. So this will be the 4th time in 17 years that Boston has played St. Louis in a championship game. It seems like every single year that St. Louis makes it to a title game in a major sport, they have to play Boston. It all goes through Beantown, like Leighton C. has said many times.
That's right.
And even whenever their cast-offs team, the Rams, makes it to the championship game, they have to play Boston. So, guys, what team or what city do you think,
City.
because we're really not going to talk about the teams, what city do you think needs the title more, Boston or St. Louis?
This one's easy to me. Boston little fans are a bunch of little bitches, and they've been spoiled pretty much
Yes.
the last 15 years. So this one's easy to me. It's St. Louis. I hate St. Louis with a passion, and that's saying a lot that I'm saying.
But they're
St.
better
Louis
than
needs
Boston.
this. They're better than Boston, and they're down to 2 sports franchises in the league in the city. it's a city that loves their sports, but it seems like sports keeps on getting ripped away from them. And the Blues have never won a Stanley Cup, actually. Looked it up before the podcast. Had no idea. I don't know. But I'm going to go with St. Louis just because Boston's been a bunch of little spoiled bitches lately.
You see, the obvious answer would be St. Louis. But you're forgetting, right now we have some 6-month-old toddlers out there who are not going to experience the Boston parade, Brandon. So for those 6-month-old toddlers, it has to be Boston because they're just being deprived of the joy of championships right now.
Oh, so Lord. I had heard a crazy stat this week, and this is what really put me to put this on the outline. So the city of St. Louis, in their entirety, they have 12 sports franchises. They have 12 sports championships. They have 11 with the St. Louis Cardinals, which like 8 or 9 of them happened before like 1970. So many people have forgotten about that. And then they had the one with the Rams. So they have 12 in their city's entire sports history, where Boston has had 12 since the turn of the 21st century. That's not even fair.
That's impressive.
That is impressive. That's very impressive. I think that the city of St. Louis needs this. They dealt with a very, very bad St. Louis Rams team forever. They get kicked out the door, then immediately turn into this ultimate sports powerhouse in L.A., every team that they've ever had basically gets ripped away with them. You look at the Hawks, they got pulled away from them. You look at the Rams, they got pulled away from them. I mean, the Cardinals are never going to go anywhere. The Blues, they are there to stay. So give them one. I don't like St. Louis sports, but I want them to win this championship. There's too good of a city, a sports city, to not get a championship. They deserve it.
So what happens next season when the St. Louis XFL football team is in the championship game? Do we still root for them?
They're playing the Boston XFL championship team, probably.
I guarantee they'll be playing Boston.
I have no idea.
They'll be playing Boston. I can guarantee that.
They're playing the Patriots.
So, guys, we'll go ahead and move off of hockey. It was short-lived, but it was kind of fun while it lasted. Guys, let's go ahead and go to our shittiest take of the sports week.
Oh, Lord.
I gotta go with this week, boys.
I hope we don't have the same one, because I have a good one.
Lay it on us.
This one goes out to the three of us, actually. It was week 52. Kawhi had just been traded to the Raptors. On the bullet point for this trade, it says, it's almost safe to say the Spurs won this trade. The next thing was, where do they put the Raptors in your eyes? So, we all conceded that the Raptors lost this trade to the Spurs.
Well, can we defend ourselves since we're actually here?
45 weeks ago, Brandon. Go ahead. Sure.
Because I still don't think Kawhi is going to stay. So, at the end of the day...
But they got to a title. Do you think DeMar DeRozan would have done this?
For Jakob Poeltl,
but I mean, I don't think they're going to win.
But it doesn't matter. Dude,
you know,
Brandon.
Yes, I didn't think they'd be here. I didn't think they'd be here right
as
now.
As a Cubs fan,
long term,
you were happy just that they made the World Series. As a Cubs fan, you remember that feeling? You make it to the World Series, like you're like, you know, at this point, anything can happen, and this is just great. Whatever we've done, it feels right.
I still think Jakob Poeltl is going to be a borderline all-star one day with the Spurs. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we definitely miss that.
Yep, and in case we know how long the NBA season is, anybody, this week 97 of the podcast, that's been 45 weeks ago, 52 weeks in a year, NBA Finals just started.
That is absolutely
I lived in
crazy.
Dallas, and I've lived in Nashville for 8 months now, 7 months, I don't know. It's been a long time since we said that.
That's crazy. So, B-Reich, what is your shittiest take of the week?
All right, so... Did you guys see Max Kellerman go off on about James Harden shouldn't be All-NBA?
I did. That was ridiculous.
I love that.
Okay. So he ranted for about a minute and a half, so I'm going to try to condense it because none of it was anywhere close to a fluid point. He made a lot of things that contradicted themselves. So let's just dive in, shall we? Basically, he said, it's not just a regular season award. He doesn't care about the rules. Playoffs count because they're about 2 months long. Every MVP candidate should be in the playoffs. So when it comes down to it, who would you want on your team? I don't know how he went from point A to point B still, but who would you want on your team? He said, I would want LeBron, KD, Kawhi, Greek Freak, and Steph. He's like, that's 5 right there. He said, "Why would I take Harden over any of those guys?" So that was basically his minute and a half condensed. So he talked about the playoffs for about a minute and then said he wanted LeBron. And LeBron didn't make the playoffs this year. So that doesn't make sense. But let's talk about the playoffs. Harden averaged 31.6 points per game, 6 rebounds, 7 assists on 35% from 3 and 48% overall. I would think he performed in the playoffs pretty well. And then on top of that, that's not what the fucking award is. It is who played the best this season. I don't care if Anthony Davis is the best center of all time. If he doesn't perform this season, he's not going to put on the All-NBA team. It's just that simple. I don't know why that's such a stretch of the imagination for these people. It's not who's the best player. It's who played the best this season. Stop making a narrative. Max Kellerman just wants attention. I guess he didn't have any good quotes for a while, so he decided to say James Harden, the probable MVP, if not him or the Greek Freak, shouldn't be an All-NBA player. He should be embarrassed.
No,
he should not be allowed to talk anymore.
I saw that.
That's insane. I
how
don't
did ESPN let that air? Like, how do you let that air? Just cut him off. Just awful.
Well, by that same thought process, you have to ask Max Kellerman, or it was Max Kellerman, correct?
It was Maxi Max.
Yes, it was Max.
Him and Will Kane run together for me. By that thought, LeBron James has to be your MVP over the last 15 years, every single season.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
And somebody needs to bring that to his attention. Say, okay, well, should LeBron have won the last 15 MVP awards? And if he says anything other than no, he's a fraud.
He's a fraud anyway.
Well, he contradicted himself several times in that one conversation, so I'm pretty sure he'll say no. Yeah. He likes contradicting himself pretty good.
That is absolutely insane. So, guys, I'm just going to stay on this boat. I'm probably going to stay on this boat until the NBA season has come to an end. But I'm going back at Skip Bayless and his Twitter account. Boys, the minute that the Raptors won Game 6 and advanced to the NBA Finals, Skip Bayless, well, I guess it worked for number 2 to quit on the Spurs last season, complaining of what Spurs doctors decided was no more than a thigh bruise. He wound up in the East playing against a hobbled, sick Embiid and an overrated Giannis. Crime pays. Okay, so there's a couple things I'm going to hit on with this. So, nobody knows how hurt you are except for the guy that's hurt. So I'm just going to take Kawhi at his word and just assume that he was hurt.
What about Markelle Fultz?
Different story.
Different story. Markelle Fultz, he is not hurt. He has the yips. So he ended up playing against a hobbled, sick Embiid. I can see that. Obviously, Embiid was not himself. But an overrated Giannis? How in the world can you say that? Any other player in the world goes 22 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 2.7 blocks, 1 steal, 45% shooting, 33% from 3. That's a great player. I do not see how you can say that Giannis is overrated, especially whenever you're trying to put down Kawhi Leonard and say how his performance was not impressive. The reason why Giannis's numbers dipped to make him look mortal was because of the change in Game 3 when Kawhi Leonard basically did not let Giannis Antetokounmpo out of his sights. The reason why Giannis was basically ripped back to a mere mortal was because of Kawhi Leonard. So I don't see how you can say that those two things, how you can put Kawhi down and then say Giannis is overrated. Maybe Kawhi's the only guy in the NBA who can guard him and make him look bad, make him look overrated, but then that just makes Kawhi look that much better. And also to say that crime pays, I feel like every guy in the NBA has a say in where he should be able to play, and to say that it's crime for a guy to want out of a situation that he obviously didn't enjoy is absolutely bullshit. Skip, if you weren't happy at ESPN and you wanted to go to Fox Sports 1, do you think you would do it? Oh wait, I think we already are in a situation that you have done that.
Dude, you just murdered Skip Bayless just now.
I don't get that.
You just murdered him.
I do not understand that. Skip, I love it. Keep it coming because you give me content every freaking week.
I love that he refers to him as number 2.
Number 2. Yeah, number 2. That actually is like a higher praise than calling him Kawhi Leonard, though, I think. Because, like, he's number 2, And he's like the only number 2 you think of whenever you think of number 2s in the NBA. That's how freaking good he is. So, back to some MLB chatter here, guys. So, something interesting that came across the news this week. Carter Stewart, the 8th pick of the 2018 MLB draft, went to college last season, chose not to sign with the Braves. Instead, after 1 year of college baseball, decides to take his talents to Japan and signed a deal worth $7 million over 6 years. Guys, what do you think of this?
Did he have a bad season or something in college?
No.
He went to a small school. Didn't he go to junior college too?
Yeah, he went to a small school.
I think he dominated.
Yeah, he had like a 1.7 ERA.
So it's after 6. Okay, so I've just on him about how MLB showtime manipulation works and all that stuff a whole lot. I'm not totally surprised somebody did something like this, but the fact that it's for 6 years really sets me back because he has to stay on that team unless they put him up on whatever, unless they post his contract for another team to buy or release him. So now there's no way he can go to MLB until he's at least 25 years old. But at that point, I guess he could sign a big minor league contract with it would be, I guess, or major league if he's just that good in Japan. But I can't believe it for 6 years.
No. The reason that he chose 6 years, though, is because after 6 years, he can be an unrestricted free agent and sign the biggest contract he wants to with any U.S. team. He avoids all the arbitration, all the free agent, all the control stuff. If you're in a league that the MLB recognizes and you've played for 6 seasons, you bypass all of that.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
he'll be a 25-year-old free agent and be able to sign whatever contract he wants.
Well, in that case, I'm confused about not for more money then. Because you probably could get that for a sign.
That's the only thing I don't know. Because that's what I was going to say. I love this, though. He is breaking the system. He is the freaking trailblazer to this. Somebody has to leap off and do this whole thing. And it basically, he's trying to put a death to this 6 years of control bullshit that we have been dealing with for years. And at the same time, though, over the first 3 years of his contract, he will probably be making like $3 million more in those 3 years by just going over to Japan and playing in that league.
So
I love it. I just love it so much.
We all are familiar with Tyler Glasnow, right?
Yes.
Okay, pitches for the Rays. He's 6-1 this year. Has a 1.8 ERA. Absolutely been on fire. He's 25 years old. Do you know how much money Tyler Glasnow is making in the MLB?
I'm guessing $500,000.
Yeah,
$500,000. $500,000. This deal is worth more than $1 million a year. So now that Tyler Glasnow will come out, being 25, which is where this Carter Stewart kid will be whenever he's done with his deal. He's going to make twice as much money as Glasnow, but he's not going to have to deal with all the bullshit car rides and bus rides for the first 3 years of his MLB career, where he's basically sleeping on a cot and taking a bus 500 miles to a game. He's going to be in Japan, a highly recognized league where everybody absolutely loves their baseball league. You can see it by even the MLB allowing Ichiro Suzuki to play in 2 games this year and basically not even take up a roster spot. I love the move. He basically doubled his money, and he's going to get to play against better competition for the first 3 years, and then after that, he'll get to sort it out.
And let's not even think that there are first-round picks every single season that do not pan out. Like you said, Double-A players make like $50,000, $60,000 a year. And it's a constant grind. You're driving all over the country. Like you said, you're in buses a lot of the time. So at very least, he's getting his money now. Yes, he would have gotten a good signing bonus, I'm sure, by signing with an MLB franchise, but he's getting his money now. One, I'm pretty sure you might have to fact check me this. I think the Japanese season is less games per year. So it's going to be less wear and tear on his arm. B, like you said, he's going to be a pro athlete now. He's going to be the shit. And the Japan League is the second best league by far in the MLB, comparatively to the MLB. Number 3, he is probably going to go up against lesser competition, just like, again, less wear and tear on your arm. He's going to be set to make, at the age of 25, all the money he can. And like people like Tyler Glasnow, who's kind of struggled through the minors, now is he 25?
Tyler Glasnow is 25 on the button.
He is going to struggle to make money. And then we've seen the trend lately. These players that get pulled up late, they're signing contracts that are way lower than their actual value, so they can skip over this little $500,000 a year BS and avoid arbitration. But at the end of the day, they're lessening their earning potential. And so he's bypassing that. I love it. I love that he's doing it. I hope it works out because that could lead to some changes.
Yeah, I mean, he is now the second pick in the last 2 seasons to opt out of playing baseball that has been drafted in the top 10. Like, obviously, this model needs to change.
Yeah, no, definitely. And they've forced a change is that they've taken them from 6 years to 4 years. That's what NBA is. That's what NFL is for first-round picks. Why not make it for baseball?
I agree.
Why is it 6 years? That is such a long time.
Because
a long time.
Because they want to give 29-year-old the choice of taking all this money, Ben. The average player reaches Major Baseball with 23 or 24 years old. They'll be 30 by the time they can have a big contract.
That's 972 games. 6 years. 162 games. 972. Which you look at the NFL, you might get 70 games in.
Yeah.
And then you can get a bigger deal. So, guys, we'll go ahead and go to the Twins now. They are the first team in the MLB to extend their lead in their division to double digits. They're already 10 games ahead of the Indians. What has been some of the keys for this turnaround from winning 78 games a year ago to now being on pace for 112 wins?
Well, the obvious answer, and it sticks out, it's the freaking Dingers. 104 home runs in 52 games, 20 more than any other team. They're tops in slugging, tops in OPS, second in average. The bats are hot and they're crazy. Eddie Rosario is a true MVP candidate. He's starting to get the respect he deserves. He's playing out of his mind. And like other players that they just picked up in the offseason, like Jonathan Schoop or whatever you call him, he's got 10 home runs. Like these guys are playing well. And they got 3 pitchers that have a sub 3.2 ERA, which only Barrios, I bet you could have guessed that before the season started.
Yeah, I mean, Ben just said it all for you. Hitting home runs. Oh, they didn't look at OPS. I just decided that OPS is the most important stat on any baseball team.
I agree with you. OPS is the most important offensive stat.
And it's not like they're getting on base at a huge number either. No, they're just hitting the shit out of the ball.
If they hit the absolute fuck out of baseball. And home runs are the most important thing when baseball games go. Anybody says pitching and then home runs. And
I think slugging and very well. Because you said last year slugging is the most important stat, and I agree with you too. Like it's I feel like it's an underrated stat.
Slugging is definitely the most underrated stat.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
people
in their last 12 games, they have won 11 of their last 12. They're outscoring teams 105 to 44. They have scored 105 runs in their last 12 games. That's insane. That is a ton of home runs. That's a ton of home runs, a ton of extra base hits. This team is absolutely firing on all cylinders. And do you guys think that do you think it's their division to win?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Right now,
well, up until maybe 2 weeks ago, I still was like, holding on to hope that Cleveland Indians, they're a more talented team. Like, let's be honest with it. Like, they have better pitching. They have good offense. But you can't avoid the fact that they're double digits now.
Yes, I agree. That's a big hole to climb out of now for the rest of the season.
Now, I'm telling the Indians for one more quick second. The Indians, I think they're going to trade Trevor Bauer pretty soon and Corey Kluber and just say this is not going to be our year. Yeah. Because they're almost trade them both this offseason, not yet 10 games. If it's, May 27th right now, if it's June 15th and they're 13-14 back, they might as well trade Bauer and Kluber.
Because the wild card's not going to come out of this division.
No.
Yeah, and both those pitchers have actually been struggling as of late, so I could see a change of scenery. That's a pretty good point right there.
It'll be interesting to see. So, guys, last up, we have top-heavy MLB. We have 5 teams that are on pace to win 98 to 100 games at least, while we're over 50 games played. The most teams to ever win 100 games in one season is 3. It has happened 6 times. Is there a reason for the gaps in records this year?
Man, the only thing I think about is, the whole AL Central, outside the Twins may be awful, so that's the easy games there. The bottom of the AL West is really bad. The Marlins are bad. The Orioles are bad. Just every division, except for the NL Central, just has 1 or 2 punching bags that loses 3 out of 4 games or 4 out of 5 games. and that helps inflate these records the higher they are. So some of these teams on pace for these records might not be that good, but they're still a good team. The records just inflated because they had that one punching bag in the division.
I pretty much all agree with you, Layden. Most of those punching bags are in the AL right now. The NL really, there's not a lot of weak teams besides the Marlins. That's just the Marlins. But I think, Layden, you hit the nail on the head right there. There's just a lot of punching bags. I think schedules have just lined up in a format that teams have really good records right now.
Yeah, and you look at it, this is what I kind of think about it as. You said a lot of those teams come from the AL. Well, a lot of people think that the AL is kind of like the new era of baseball, where the NL is the small ball, the old school baseball, where they still don't have the DH. Well, you could say the same thing about the upper management, where you have these AL teams who are really trying to be bad for a while, try to go with that new strategy of just acquire talent and then eventually be good. And those teams that were bad 10 years ago are absolutely horrendous now. Your bad teams are getting that much worse, where your good teams are getting all the good players. Because there's not less talent in the MLB. All that talent's just on a handful of teams. I mean, you look at some of the lineups, you could not imagine teams being this loaded 15 years ago. That's because the bad teams are getting out from underneath these guys instead of paying them, where the good teams are willing to go out there and spend the money and win now.
Well, and then you could look at the NL, like you said, I honestly, the only rebuild that I can even think of off the top of my head that's worked in the AL is the Astros. Clearly it's worked.
Yes.
The way that it does. The Rays, they just always reload. But the NL, you have the Phillies, you have the Padres are playing decently, you have the Braves, the Cubs they're here to stay now, but they started that way. The NL seems to be getting it right that way. And you're right, how long has the White Sox been bad?
Bad. A long time.
How long have they been rebuilding?
Since Ozzie Guillen left.
And then the LA East, they're always just trying to do an arms race, so I don't even really include them.
Yeah,
but
they don't count.
The Blues
except the Orioles.
There's
so many teams. How many times the Seattle Mariners jump out to a big lead and they suck at the end of the year? They're sucking now.
Yes.
They just keep on being bad. The Royals did it right for a second, but now they're just in flux. So, yeah, I just think they got to... Wow.
The Royals did what the Cubs did, but the Cubs have money.
Yes.
That's what happened.
Exactly right.
And now they don't know what to do.
So you guys think that the record of 3 will be broken this year?
No, I do not. I think I can see us getting 3.
I can see 4.
I can see 4.
I can see 4.
I think at some point, so I think the Yankees will get there. When they get their bats back, because they didn't think they'll start losing games. They got the good players here. The Twins, at some point, I don't think they're going to aggressively mean. And, they're still win 90, 95 games, because they won the Twin games already. I think the Dodgers win 100 games, and the Cubs win 100 games. The Cubs are the best team right now.
I love that.
Oh, and the Astros. Okay, yeah, 4.
I think the Astros will. So I think it's 4. I think it's Dodgers, 4. Cubs, Astros, Yankees probably. Those 4 teams will win.
I think it's going to be 4. And I think it's just because bad teams are that much worse now. It's a new era. Yep. We'll have at least 4. I think 5 might be a little much to break the record by 2, but at 4 I think we can say is going to happen.
Who are the other 2 teams, the Twins and the Rays? Or the Rays and Pittsburgh 100?
The Rays are right. They're the one that's 99, 98.
Okay. I can see 5, I guess, because the Twins are already on pace for so many.
Yeah.
They had your Red Sox for last year, again, they just one away, but they don't know how they played for a 2-week span make up for it. But
right. So, guys, it is time to put our producer in the spotlight. Each week he goes out and watches movies, and he comes in and breaks them down for us. Leighton C., what do you have for us today?
This week, I'm looking down a very nostalgic movie, and Detective Pikachu.
Ooh, I like this.
Dude, it was a good movie. I'm going to spoil it all for you. It was a good movie.
I like it very much. So basically, Pikachu, they're in this world of Pokemon. There's a city called Rhyme City. And in that world, all know trainers, or I guess Pokemon and people work together to make the world better. And that's what the whole thing's about. It's all about how Pokemon and humans can work together. They don't have to be captured like the antagonist wants to do in the movie. But Justice Smith plays Tim Goodman, who is the main character of the movie, who, the people know, is not Will Smith's son.
It's not Ash Ketchum?
No, it's not Ash
I have
Ketchum.
had 3 people say that Will Smith's son played in it. I was like, that's not him.
No, Jaden Smith is Will Smith's son.
Jaden Smith is his son.
Justice Smith is just a black guy who's young.
He's another mixed black guy.
Yeah.
Last name Smith.
So he goes home one day after his father's death and finds the Detective Pikachu at his house. Pikachu has amnesia, doesn't know why he has memory, doesn't know who he is, but he knows that his hat had that address in it. So then he convinces Tim to go on an investigation to find out what happened to his dad. My favorite part of the movie, though, and at first I was really not sure how you feel about this, Ryan Reynolds voiced Pikachu.
I like that.
I like Ryan Reynolds a lot. I think he's really funny. And I was really worried that his voice wasn't going to be...
Pika Pika.
Yeah, that enough.
Exactly.
But he started making jokes. He had very dry humor jokes. I thought the jokes were really funny. And I thought Ryan Reynolds was a really good choice for this movie. Van, what do you got to say, man?
I was just going to go on that Ryan Reynolds thing. I did not think Ryan Reynolds was going to play a good Pikachu because he wouldn't be, lack of a better words, cute enough. And the way
Ryan
they
Reynolds
made
cute.
the animate, huh?
Ryan, is he too hot to be Pikachu?
Yeah.
No, not his voice. Like the way his humor is.
Yeah.
But they made Pikachu, like, because he's animated, obviously. They made him very, very, like, cute and, like, do weird things. But he was, like, Ryan Reynolds humor. That's, like, really, it's just kind of dry and, like Layton said, and kind of, like, almost a little vulgar at times.
Yeah, think about that. We're in a world now. We're in a world now where Deadpool is also Pikachu.
That's awesome.
This is 2019.
And I think it was really smart because a lot of the people that are really into Pokemon are about our age.
Yes.
And we don't want, it had all the nostalgia that you think of with Pokemon. It had some corny moments because it's Pokemon, but it also had Ryan Reynolds as the main character, basically making jokes that were very, very funny to people around our age. I think they were very clever in that.
That's awesome.
Love it.
So Leighton C, how many dips?
Well, this week Van finished the review for me, so that's fine. But 2.9 dips.
Ooh, 9?
2.9.
Wow.
I liked it a lot. Like, I understand that there were like technical flaws in it and stuff. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Right, stuff like that. But shit, I liked it a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have at no point in time I was just like, man, this movie sucks.
That's
The whole time I liked
I agree
it.
with
So 2.9.
All right. So 2.9.
Did you get Pokemon cards?
No, I went the second weekend, not the first weekend.
Well, yeah. No, I got Pokemon cards. I got a Magikarp.
Yeah,
believe it or
I
not.
know. I remember back when we were younger, you could go to a Pokemon movie any time for a 2-month span and get a freaking Pokemon card.
I know.
I guess they just run short of cardboard nowadays.
Yeah. Shortage on cardboard. I'll have to go watch that. That's actually one of the movies I do want to go see.
But real quick, and I'm not spoiling anything. Brandon, you saw the movie. 2 months ago, I read that depending on how this movie fared at the box office, they're going to make more Pokemon Universe movies. With that ending, do you feel like that's going to be a possible thing now? Or do you think those go with like an entirely new protagonist, entirely new everything else?
Completely knew everything else.
I think they almost have to.
The way they wrapped it up really well.
Yeah, they did.
I'm going to have to get on board with this. I like this more than the Marvel stuff, I think.
So let's hop on board with Pokemon Universe.
So guys, any bold predictions before we wrap this show up?
Red Sox and no one go on the IL. We've been doing that a lot lately.
OG comes back and plays some valuable minutes.
The Raptors will be leading the next time that we talk on this podcast.
Oh, wow.
That
And-
what, 3 games?
I think it's 3. Yeah,
3
3.
games? Okay.
And on that note, for Drake, for Leighton C, and B-Ride, Dippers, as always, stay saucy.